lucid dreaming and how to do it should be free. And it should be well known, and people who have lucid dreams, whatever age they are, should be able to go to someone and say, this is what's happening to me. And that person should be able to explain that this is a scientific phenomena and you're normal and you're okay. And this is the reality of lucid dreaming, is that it's not always a super positive experience. It might be really, really daunting. You want to know what happens after death? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I can't tell you what happens after death. And then he says, but you might even like it. And he says, you'll be able to tear right into the void and slip right into the inky blackness, just like how you lucid dream straight after, and I will be there to help you. Death is a concept known only to humans and will become obsolete. But for now, get lost. And then it kicks me out of the dream.
That's deep. That's so crazy.
Those are my lucid dreams.
Having friends in the lucid dreaming community is really special to me and has really advanced my practice and enthusiasm for dream work overall. Today's guest is Bryn, who I met in the community. It's been fun to explore this idea of being able to meet up in the dream space, share information with other people, and explore the dream on a deeper level. Bryn and I are interested in the metaphysical aspects of dreams and researching these phenomena on an academic level. Her background in Jungian psychology has guided her through a spontaneous shift in her dream life. So thanks for joining me, and please feel free to share your story.
My name is Bryn. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Australia. I'm a counsellor, or studying to be. And 2 years ago, 2022, is when I first started having like lucid dreams. And I guess it was like a somewhat abnormal experience, because I feel that a lucid dream is fit into like the people that started doing it when they were really young and never really stopped. And then the other people that try for like maybe a year to sort of like get into the lucid dreaming space and then become aware, and they do like reality checks and things like that. Those are like the main categories of people that I know of that can lucid dream. But mine started really, really spontaneously, where I was just having like sleep paralysis induced lucid dreams, where I was like sort of like sinking into my mattress and then waking up in the lucid dream. And for like a while there, for like a year or maybe a little bit more, I was just doing it like literally whenever I wanted to, like on demand, and just sort of exploring that realm. So that's how I started.
So you had them spontaneously. Did you just become aware from within the dream, or what in particular made you become lucid?
So Stephen LeBerg talks about this, I'm pretty sure, where he says like when someone goes from sleep paralysis into like, they sort of go through this like waiting room, like a void sort of thing, and then you wake up usually on your own bedroom floor. And in like a way, it's almost like an OBE. Some people say they see their own body, some people don't. But yeah, I was just sort of like going through that and then just waking up on my bedroom floor and just inside of a lucid dream. Like the first couple of times I didn't know it was a lucid dream. I just had no idea what was happening to me. But yeah, that's sort of like how that formed, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So you felt like aware in this liminal space, and you knew that you were not awake and maybe not asleep.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. Where it's like a very strange liminal space where things don't look exactly as they should. Maybe there's different people or like things appearing, different like sounds and textures and feelings, and it's not quite right. Yeah.
And so when you had the sleep paralysis experience, what was that like? Was that scary? And were you able to go from sleep paralysis to a lucid dream?
It was scary because I had sleep paralysis when I was younger, and it was like the really typical, I can't move, I'm terrified, what's going on? And like that was really traumatic for me. And then when I got a bit older, and then like when this started happening, I would feel sleep paralysis coming on, and I really thought, hold on a second, what happens if I don't fight it? And I just go with it. And yeah, that's sort of where it led me, I guess.
That's awesome. So what happened when you didn't fight it? Like, do you remember the first time?
Yeah, I do. It was really scary. And I think it was designed by whatever designs these processes to be scary, where it was almost like I don't know, kind of like the metaphor of taking like the red pill or the blue pill, and you can do this and you can go through with it. And it's kind of scary because you're slipping into this really dark, condensed space, and you can feel very strange textures, very strange sensations, lights, colors, and all sort of hypnagogic sort of like hallucinations and things like that. But if you decide to do it, you sort of are rewarded with waking up in what feels like a different reality.
Yeah, that's cool. I tell people all the time, like what you're saying, that when you approach it with like love and motivation, it kind of transforms the scary sleep paralysis experience usually. And it's kind of like a challenge within dream work as a whole to be able to get through that and face that fear in order to get the reward, like if you see dream work as like a video game, that's like one of the challenges. So yeah, it's a really good lesson to like face your fears and like confronting things, confronting the shadow. So I try to tell people all the time, like, don't be scared of sleep paralysis. It can lead you to really cool lucid dreams and OBEs and other things like that. So I've had similar experiences to you where like I had a lot of sleep paralysis in college, but I was never really scared of it because I was kind of used to it. Like I have had some, even now as like an advanced practitioner, whatever you call it, I get scared once in a while. I'm like, nope, not dealing with this. But for the most part, like I can stay calm and get out of my body and walk around. And sometimes I'll be in like my home and then sometimes I'll just start a dream randomly. Have you ever experienced like, how people say when they have sleep paralysis and they feel like scary energies or like demons and beings around them? Have you ever felt something like that?
Yeah. When I was younger and maybe I had like a different sort of belief system again, when I wasn't really aware of like what demons could be a metaphor for, like shadows of the inner psyche and things like that. It was really scary where it did feel like I should be able to move right now. And I think the brain sort of fills in the gap like, oh, you can't move because there's like an evil entity. And that's like what the stories that you tell yourself to sort of explain the experience. And then I did have a lot of really, really intense nightmares in darker phases of my life that had a lot of, like those like evil beings and things like that. So yeah, I have experienced that, but not so much anymore.
It's interesting. So it's like the more you learn and like accept the experience, I guess it becomes more mellow, I've noticed.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say so.
So I want to talk about like how you found me and the podcast and like how we kind of came to be, because I thought that was such like an awesome story. And it made me really happy when you reached out.
So special, honestly. In Australia, we don't really have anything like any organizations or things that really help support people to lucid dream, or we have any like even validation research, other people doing it. There's not many people here that do it, and that I know of anyway. So I reached out and I have a few like connections in America and whatnot. And one of my friends sent me a bunch of like resources and she said, oh, you should really look through this and, connect with people from like different groups and things like that. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And so I'm going through it and it's a lot of resources, like 3 Facebook groups, like a bunch of like newsletters and things like that. Like just, lots and lots of information. And I decided to go into like one Facebook group and I'm scrolling down and I see like someone posted like, oh, did you ever have like a lucid dream that helped with a breakup? And I click on it because I was like, I've done that. That's sick. And I like read, and then I just read this like beautiful story about a dream someone had. And it was like meeting a spirit guide and she was in this beautiful red dress. And I just like, the dream was written in such a lovely way. It was just really touching for me. I just really vibed with that. But I didn't comment. I didn't like, check it out or anything. I just sort of went, okay, on to the next information. Like, let's go. And I ended up like getting onto like the IASD, the International Association of, is it Dream Sciences or Studies? Study
of Dreams.
Yeah. Their newsletter, which was like free for like the December period. And I was like, let's have a look through here. And it's like doing like an interview and like all sorts of other things. And I just like scroll down to a random page and I'm like, oh, let's read this. And it was like the interviewer asked, what was like a standout sort of dream for you? And I read the lines, like the exact same lines, like spirit guide, beautiful red dress. And I was just like, wait, what? Like, did I just, what? And I read it and it was like the exact same dream. And I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. And I just thought it was so amazing that like through like thousands of different information sources, I just read the exact same dream account. And it ended up being yours. And I found you on Facebook. I was like, hey, like, you're not going to believe this. This is crazy. And I just said thank you because I thought that was beautiful. So yeah, that was like a crazy synchronicity.
Thank you for like reading my dream. And it's so funny because think about all the things that had to align for that synchronicity to happen. Like I was just randomly scrolling through Facebook and every once in a while I'll comment on a post. And I was like, oh, I have a story for this post. And I just dropped a screenshot. I didn't even really think about writing anything. And then in the magazine, Robert Wagner asked me to do an interview, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, like, look at me doing things. So that was a dream I shared on there. And so those were two completely different things for me, like months apart. So it's really interesting that they like collided for you in that way. And it's a lot of validation for me because, you know, even though people are doing this more now, it's still like sometimes I feel kind of crazy, you know, as I'm sure you understand. So it's good to see that like my stories and what I'm doing like reaches people in some way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that dream just like really resonated with me because I was like, you know, I have felt similar things to that. And I don't feel as crazy, and it was just a vibrant, lovely dream. And I think like in a way that synchronicities, if you've read The Alchemist by Paulo something or other, he's like a Brazilian author. He really says, like, it's a work of fiction, but I think there's some truth to it. But he really talks about how synchronicities guide us to our soul's purpose. And that might be a bit like hippie of me.
Girl, trust me, I'm on the same page. I love that book too, by the way.
So yeah, synchronicities, they are everywhere, especially when you're following things that feel right for you, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's like a higher self of us or whatever, if you call it ancestors, spirit guides, whatever, opposing force on the spiritual side of reality that are helping us through things. They send us messages like hidden into our daily life. And, you know, if we ignore them, then we ignore them. But if we pay attention to them, it like wakes up a feeling within us that's kind of like so hard to ignore and like really hard to explain. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. And in like Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, I'm sure you're probably familiar with that at this point. That's called not the awakening, but it's like the call to adventure. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like you have this thing that says, I can no longer follow the things that I've been following anymore. It does not either internally or externally work for me. And this is where I need to go now.
Yeah, it's beautiful, really. And I thought of something else, too, while you were talking about how dream work isn't very respected or studied in Australia nowadays. And I find that interesting, too, because what do you think happened? So I've read a little bit about like the Aboriginal culture, which is in Australia, right? And they were really into dream work and dreams. So what do you think happened in this modern world?
I'm not like the best person to give my opinion on it because I don't know that much about like what the Indigenous culture has like suffered through. Fortunately, we aren't taught that in schools either, but it was, you know, suppression. It was a lot of suppression and it was culled out of the community and the practices weren't taken seriously. And in a lot of ways, it was removed from history. So some really, really, really horrible things to sort of take us away from what would be almost like a natural process for people of using lucid dreams or dreams in general as like messages from either like an external force or an internal force. And it's really, really sad that we have gotten to this place where it's not taken seriously. And well, it's coming full circle now because people are taking interest. Like we've got people like you and me, and we've got other outspoken people that talk about, you know, the importance of this.
That's true. And if there's any listeners in Australia, they should follow you and like make a little community in Australia because I see it growing, you know, every once in a while, I like people will comment like, oh, I'm watching you from Australia. And I'm like, oh, great. That makes me happy because I have a few Australian friends and they say the same thing. Like people here think I'm crazy. And I'm like, really? Like insane. I found a community here, but you know, before I had that community, I also felt that way. So I know the feeling.
Yeah. You get all sorts of like labels like schizophrenic, like psychosis, you know, maybe you're just delusional, escapist. It's
wow. People have said that to you?
Yeah.
Like for having lucid dreams or what?
Yeah. I even had like a psychic and I was like, you know what, like I'm like speaking to this man a lot in my dreams. I think he's my animus. And she's just like, have you been tested for schizophrenia? Like you might be insane.
What? That's interesting because animus is such a Jungian concept that's quite like understood in psychology these days.
Oh, not here.
Oh, wow. That's interesting to hear. So what has your journey been like? You said you're starting your career as a counselor. And I think that's really awesome, by the way. What's your plan or like what has your experience been like?
I have a degree in graphic design originally, and that was going like, it was good. Like I then went into like business and communication because I thought, you know, like this is really great. Like this is like, and I realized that the only thing that actually interested me in it was psychology. And I really felt business is just the psychology of manipulation. And I didn't want to be doing that. So I sort of escaped that and went into a diploma of counseling. And that time was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what is happening? But yeah, I followed it through and I've got 6 months left of like the 2-year degree. And I've liked it. I've liked what I've learned, although it is like, it's base level things that we're learning, and I don't agree with like some of it, but at the end of the day, like it's a way to get a foot in the door of the industry, and I do really appreciate like the support that I found inside of counseling. But yeah, there's nobody talking about the things that I'm talking about, that's for sure.
That's good. So you're paving the way. I'm excited to see you grow and take that into something, new. We're actually similar in a lot of ways, because I also studied graphic design and then I switched to psychology, and now here we are. So that's really funny.
I do like digital illustration. It's like a lot of the things that I do now are like influenced by my dreams. I'm sure you probably do like similar things like that.
Yeah, I love hearing creative people. Yeah. Like, do you do that intentionally while lucid, or do you just have a dream of something and it gives you an idea?
Well, sometimes like I will see like figures or something in my dream, and then I'll turn it into art. And I'll draw it out.
Super cool. Yeah. I love that. Like getting inspiration from the dream. That's like multi-dimensional art. Like you created it in the dream and you brought it to life. That's super cool.
Yeah. And that's another thing that you can use dream spaces for. And this is like something else that I do. I can play guitar and I make music as well. And I like found out that you really can use a lucid dream as almost like an audio desk, where like you can add like guitar into the dream and you create your own like symphony of things inside of the dream. And there's like levels of things. And it's like you can either see it physically or you don't see it at all. And you can just create it and it just comes out of the dream like all around you. You just hear the noise of like the bass, the guitar, the strings. And you just create these like absolutely like, it doesn't sound bad ever. It's just this like beautiful symphony of music that comes out of nowhere, but your brain just converts it into something that sounds amazing.
I love that. Are you able to remember the tune when you wake up so that you can replicate it?
Sometimes. Like, I don't think I'm at a good enough point in like music construction where I can do it well, like to be able to do exactly what I've heard in the dream. But sometimes I hear things in the dream and I'll play it on my guitar.
I love that. So lucid dreaming, do you remember like maybe not your first lucid dream or the first one that was like really inspiring to you, where you were like, okay, I know I'm in a dream. Like I need to do something about this.
Yeah. I think my dreams went like straight from 0 to 100, like real quick. So the first couple of times I was lucid dreaming, I was, and this is a very common theme in my dreams, like visited by what some people would consider an animus or an amalgamation of masculine traits. But something like a figure that is very aware, more aware than what a usual dream character would sort of be. He usually takes the form of whoever I'm dating at that point, because I've like often be dating like a man and he will like sort of like appear as that person. So at that point, it was like my boyfriend at the time of like 2 years. And I would sort of wake up into a dream and he would be there like visiting me. And I felt like that was really nice because we didn't spend like as much time as I wanted to like in real life. So I would sort of just like put myself in these dreams and see him and just sort of like be like comforted by that. I'm like, this is really nice. Like, hell yeah, I'm spending time with you. And then at one point, like maybe like the second dream of that or like the third, I was just kind of like, hang on a second. Who are you? Like, you are not like my boyfriend. Like I've asked him like, did we just have a shared dream? And he's like, nah, So I'm like, who are you? And at that point, he just sort of smiles at me and we just start talking about like life and death and all sorts of different things. And I realized like, this is a little bit more than a normal sort of dream.
I love the concept of the anima and the animus. And I'm just going to give it a little definition so the listeners know, and correct me if I'm wrong. There's like the male aspects inside of every female and then the female aspects inside of male. Then that's kind of like the balance that we all have within us. And I was just reading about this the other day, interestingly. And sometimes if somebody identifies too much with one characteristic or the other, their dreams might try to balance them out or, remind them of the other side of that.
And there's like a million different schools of thought on this, but the man's anima, which is like the repressed or just collected traits of feminine inside of him will appear like as a woman in his dreams, or like in some things that I've read to do with like Jungian theory is like that all feminine aspects of the dream are the anima. And it can be like in normal dreams as well, where it's just like there's a woman in your dream and she's coming to you. And Carl Jung believed that the different stages of individuation, the anima or animus would come and help that dreamer along with like what is going on in their process of individuation. And in a lucid dream, I guess you can identify this person as being someone who is almost like a gatekeeper or a gateway to like the deeper realms of like the lucid dream. It's someone that feels a lot more than just like an NPC character, or is like it's a reflection of you, and it can either be like good or it can be bad. And yeah, people can be unbalanced as well. Like really hold on to that anima or animus and do it as a sort of protection.
So when you asked this dream character, they expressed to you that that's what they were representing, essentially?
I think I knew who it was because I had that background of like knowing what it was before. But often like your characters in your dreams, whether the animus or anima or whoever you're talking to, they'll often speak in riddles, the metaphors and the riddles. So I guess I just said like, you're not, ex-boyfriend's name. And he would just be like, no. And I would just be like, okay, well, we don't need to talk about who you really are. Like, that's fine. Let's just like, what's the meaning of life?
I love that. Talking to dream characters is one of my favorite things to do when I'm lucid. And I'll always have these deep existential conversations. And it's like, It's amazing. I feel like I'm getting all this information and all these secrets of the universe. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. And there's like, because the different characters, like, let's say you have a sister who's very independent and you have a dad that maybe like doesn't like what you're doing, and you have like a mom that is like, uninvolved or something. All these characters will sort of like manifest into your dreams and represent those different parts of your psyche. And they can be good or they can be like sort of negative as well. So they'll like provide that different dialogue from that standpoint of how your psyche feels like that person represents, if that makes sense. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And it really like makes me understand how dreams can be used as like our internal therapist. So I'm excited to see people take more interest in like actually incorporating this into clinical therapy and counseling and things like that, because it can be really helpful if you really start to look into it.
Absolutely. And that is a Jungian dream analysis, when you're just like, you're picking apart just a general dream. It can be a lucid dream also, but I guess in a lucid dream, you're a bit more aware. So you could do that yourself. But a therapist, or maybe you do it by yourself, is just sort of, you're breaking down the archetypes of what is actually happening in your dream. And then you're most often sort of like called to look at why that is appearing for you. And then you integrate it. And that is like, profound psychological benefit and healing. For someone who doesn't have a lucid dream, they can absolutely do that.
So in your program that you're studying, are they teaching you about this, or are you finding your own ways to incorporate your dream work into your clinical practice?
God. They tried to tell me that like Freud was the one who discovered like awareness in dreams. And that's just not true. It's not true. And I wrote in my paper, I was like, actually, the Tibetan Buddhists were doing it for like blah, blah, blah.
Good.
And people before that as well. And it's just not recognized. Tibetan Buddhism, there's like particular sect of people who are really, that's what they practice. They practice like meditation and Buddhism within lucid dreams. And Charlie Morley is someone who he studied with them, and he was sort of allowed to go out and talk about like how they actually are using it, and the dream meditations that come from that. And that's an ancient practice. So that's, that's not Freudian.
Interesting. So I can sense you being a little bit of like a pioneer in Australia.
Yeah, I'd like to think so, or maybe I don't know. But it's just I don't believe there is one objective reality. I think that we are like individual sort of spheres of collected memories and encounters and consciousness, and to connect with each other, this is going to be something that could help us connect really well. So it is important that it happens. And I guess the way that I would like to do that is, it's sort of coming around now, and it's coming around in a sort of space that I don't really endorse or encourage. And it's like this space of like these like sort of secluded communities that are really sort of esoteric in nature. And like some of them are even just like a bit culty, where it's like you've got this group of people that are like, let's do esoteric breath work and I'll charge you like $500 to do it. or like, I'll teach you how to lucid dream, but like, you got to come to my like group and you got to pay me for it. And I don't like that. And I want to stray really far away from that, where I think lucid dreaming and how to do it should be free. And it should be well known. And people who have lucid dreams, whatever age they are, should be able to go to someone and say, this is what is happening to me. And that person should be able to explain that this is a scientific phenomena and you're normal and you're okay. What I would like to bring to that is like normalizing it, being outspoken about it, and also using it therapeutically as well, and teaching people how to do that.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good way to look at it. I respect it a lot. When it comes to learning how to lucid dream, I know you started off kind of having some spontaneous ones, but did you ever try any techniques, and like what worked for you once you started trying to like induce it further?
I think I'm lucky in the way that I didn't really have to learn how to do it. It just came to me. And I am really lucky in the way for that. But I've taught other people how to do it. And what really sort of has worked for them is to do like Stephen LeBeau's like wild technique, or a variation of that, where you allow yourself to go into sleep paralysis and you don't fight it and you accept whatever is going to be on the other side. Sometimes it's scary and sometimes it's not.
Nice. And people that you have talked to have had success with that method?
Yeah, they have. Like, I've had people that have gone into the dream and quite instantly been sort of like faced with like an animus or anima that is like angry to have been repressed for so long. And this is the reality of lucid dreaming, is that it's not always a super positive experience. It might be really, really daunting. And like, that is why we also need more discourse around it, is that we need ways to sort of look at that where we can think like, okay, no, that is actually okay. What happened to me there was like a learning experience.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I get a lot of this type of comment online about like, oh, I'm scared to lucid dream because sleep paralysis or nightmares or dream characters being mean or whatever. And, you know, I try to tell people that's just a part of it. But what are your advice for that? Like, to encourage people not to be scared of these things?
You really have to get in touch with something in you that is more courageous than scared. You have the capabilities of exploring your mind. It's not going to be sunshines and rainbows like all the time. It's going to be confronting. So you got to find your own personal legend, and you got to find your own guiding influence, maybe your spirit guide, your higher self, like your deity, somebody who, it's not that they're not scared. They are terrified, but they do it anyway. And you got to really tap into that. And I guess like the thing that really pushed me was like, fear paralyzes you. Fear is the mind killer. There is infinite capability here within me and other people. And the only thing that stops us is fear.
That's true. And I think we all have a shadow and things to work on. And the same way in waking life, you know, we have good experiences and we have tough ones. And that's just like a part of life. So I don't see why dreams would be any different, you know?
It is almost like amplified. Like, you know, if you are in a room with someone and maybe they're a narcissist or they're a sociopath, and you can feel that dark energy, oftentimes you can't see it, but in your dreams, if you feel that energy, it will manifest, and it is very much physically there. And that's just the physical manifestation, because your brain is working in a different way.
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting point too, because one thing that I kind of used to struggle a lot was with differentiating, like if I would have a dream like that, for example, I would kind of question, like, is this just my anxiety, or is my dream telling me something about this person? How would you like differentiate that?
Well, like in Jungian analysis, we sort of look at the fact that like nobody is like influencing you in these different ways. These are all aspects of your own psyche. So if you've got this shadow in your dream, maybe it's like a friend that you don't really like, that is like almost like demonic or scary looking. You sort of wake up and you have a look at that and you say, what part of that resonates for me? Where is that in my shadow? You know, maybe she's really judgmental. And then you sort of go, why am I so upset about that? Am I the one that is being judgmental? And that is a way of taking action against, because you can't do anything about anyone else's like life or experience or how they treat you, really. You can only set boundaries. It's a way of taking responsibilities for your own sort of interpretation of what's going on there.
And so when it comes to your lucid dreams, what kind of things do you do while lucid?
Oh, God. Like just everything and anything, I guess. Like, I spent a lot of time asking questions and studying dream architecture. I guess I'm really trying to decipher what the architecture of the dreams are and how I can translate this into something that other people will understand, what the levels of the dream and what the different spaces of the dreams mean. And yeah, I guess I spend a lot of time exploring like what works, what's going to work for everyone. And, you know, a map. I think people need a map.
Yeah, that's cool. Do your dreams have consistent environments, or are they different?
My lucid dreams, yeah, I'd say so. Like there's the dreams where I'm in a dream and then I become lucid and I have, or like, you know, there's still the narratives of the original dream going on. And because there's so much in that dream and you're aware that you're like dreaming now, and it's a lot more colorful and vibrant. There's more control there. So like, let's say like I want to shoot off into space. Yeah, okay, I can do that. But if I'm doing where I'm a sleep paralysis type of dream where I'm sinking into it, which is a bit more of a quieter space, and I think more of a esoterical space where like more things are able to come to you and you can have deeper conversations that make more sense with various characters. When I'm in that sort of space, it's almost always like I'm waking up in my room and then I can exit out. But then there's the ability, and Charlie Morley also talks about this in his various different types of lucid dreams, there's the ability to open up a void or a portal or sink down into the floor and go into a deeper level of a lucid dream. And that is always available, where you can continue to go down and down and down levels, and they become either more fragmented or you become more lucid. I spend a lot of time doing that. If you're sort of starting off in it, I guess, like, and I'm still in this stage as well, it's like you want to sort of grab something on the ground and pull yourself into the ground, and you want to sink into it. And you maybe want to just like, you go into like a waiting period, like a little black void zone, and you might hear weird things and blah, blah, blah. And then you'll sort of wake up maybe again deeper into the dream, but in the same bedroom floor. And you might see more things, be like open to more things as well. And yeah, you can continue going from there.
So that black space waiting period, I've kind of experienced that. And at first I used to think like, oh, dream's over, I'm waking up, and I would kind of mess it up for myself. And then I kind of realized that if I just stay calm and wait patiently and feel whatever's around me, eventually the dream would come back into vision.
Yeah, so that's like an interesting way that you've interpreted that. And I think the way that we interpret things or make meanings from things is like what will change the dream as well. So like if I was to say like, you're not waiting for the dream to come back into focus. You're in like a loading screen that is also like this void that is open to like other things coming to you as well. That might change how you experience that. Yeah, like for me and how I experience it is like really akin to what Charlie Morley talks about in his book, Dreams of Awakening, where it is this like void. Sometimes it's almost like an OBE where you can see stars, or like you can hear voices talking to you as well. And sometimes you can stay in that, or other times you can sort of like sink back into the dream.
Do you ever find that the dream doesn't do exactly what you're trying to do?
Yeah, definitely. I think that like you don't want to like exert your ego over controlling the dream too much, because the subconscious has a mind of its own. And in the like a quote from Carl Jung is like, we are but ships of consciousness sailing on a sea of unconsciousness. And that, I think that's a really great thing to take into this, where it's like we are in the realm of the subconscious. It's massive. It's very much like aware. You don't want to fight it, and you don't want to like make it do things that it doesn't want to do. It's trying to teach you things for a reason. So like maybe you have more or less control. Maybe you really want to control it, really want something to happen, but it should let you like see things that you're ready for, or do things that you're ready for in that time. So it's like, yeah, try your best to control it, but maybe sort of just allow it to go along and see what you're learning from it too.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. I actually heard a quote. I wonder if it's related or if it's a Jungian quote, but when it comes to lucid dreaming, we can usually control the ship, but not the sea, meaning sometimes the dream kind of has an agenda of its own that we can't necessarily control.
Jung didn't have any works on lucid dreaming. I don't know if he believed in it or knew of it from what I'm aware, but like there's like lots of his untranslated texts, which might like have a key to that. But yeah, I think that's like based on the Jungian quote.
What have you noticed about like when we're lucid, sometimes we exert our ego onto the dream, which is understandable, you know, because we do what we want and we take control of the dream and make it go a certain way. But what's the difference between that and a non-lucid dream? Do you feel like you're able to get messages more from non-lucid dreams because maybe we're not controlling it as much?
Yeah, I think like what Jung says about the unconscious is it's full of like archetypes that influence us on our journey to alchemization or transformation or individuation, where like these dreams have like symbols from like the collective unconscious, which is just like this big grouping of our ancestral knowledge that has been passed down to us. And it's funny when you mentioned that question, because I really was just reading like a lot of Jungian analysis sort of say don't have lucid dreams because your ego is interfering with the process of the archetypes of these dreams that is trying to help you to get where you need to be. But I disagree with those analysis when they say don't have lucid dreams or don't exert your ego, because a lucid dream is a space where you are able to feel interconnectedness on such a level that is impossible for most people unless you've done like 10,000 hours of meditation.
And the other thing also is like, just because you're lucid doesn't mean you can control the dream. Sometimes I'm lucid and I don't have dream control. Like they're two separate things. A lot of people don't realize that. And even when I can control the dream, sometimes I choose to just go with it and not interfere too much, just to like see what I get. And I find that those are some of my most powerful lucid dreams when I just take it in with like an inquisitive kind of nature.
Absolutely. I think like, I don't think there's like a right or wrong mindset to have. It's all like open to interpretation. But like, yeah, I think that is the way to go personally, where like you're open to everything.
Yeah, I love that. So when it comes to the archetypes that you mentioned, how can we use like the archetypes to like understand our dreams and like help us out?
Well, like you have to do like a lot of research into it, really, where you're like, it's kind of like, yeah, it's really subjective because like, yeah, you could do your research, but for a lot of people, water means the unconscious. It means the subconscious. So if you're being flooded, and this is a dream I have quite regularly, I'm being attacked by like just a big wave or something, that means my unconscious is really overcoming me. It's like I am, mostly acting on impulse because that's what the subconscious does. But for other people, water could have a completely different meaning. Maybe somebody like, had a drowning event and that water symbolizes something completely different. So it's like the archetypes, you have to really do your own self-exploration to find out what that means for you. That's the theory of like semiotics, where it's like every symbol and meaning culturally can mean like one significant thing to a group of people, but individually it will mean something different.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because dream work is such a personal thing. And we have these guidelines of things that can help us. But I tell people not to rely too much on dream dictionaries or Googling definitions for things. And it can be helpful. And it's great to study like archetypes and common meanings for things. But no single dream symbol is universally applied to everybody. I mean, it just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. Throw your dream dictionaries out.
Yeah, for real. Do you have any like really cool lucid dreams that you could share that have been like really impactful for you?
Yeah, like I've got hundreds really, but like I guess one that would bring up a line of questioning in terms of like what is dreaming and what does it really mean is a lucid dream that I was spontaneously sort of put into. So this was like early on in the dreaming, where I'm like in bed and I'm like, I'm going to have a lucid dream. Show me something I'm ready to integrate or like look at, or like, you never know what you're going to get with a lucid dream. And I'm like going into the sleep paralysis, and I'm like going into my mattress, I'm sinking in, and my awareness feels I am like floating under my bed, and then I'm into the void, which is the waiting space. And I'm in there for some time, and then I wake up. So this was like in 2022, I think, from the waiting sort of void. I wake up and I'm in a house. It's a Queenslander, which is just like really common sort of like 1960s architecture we have around here. I'm in a Queenslander, a house. It's brightly lit. I feel something strange in my body, like a shivering sensation of someone being close. I walk through the hallway and there is a bathroom. Oh, actually, this is a different dream.
It's okay.
It was really funny. I was like, oh, this is so thematic. Yeah, that's like a completely different dream. But in that dream, like I met my Animus, and he was just sort of like really surprised to see me there in the dream. And he's like just come out of the bathroom. He's wearing a towel, and he's just like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, this is my dream. And at that time, like someone close to me was in hospital, and I was like, tell me what happens when we die. Like, I need to know. I feel really stressed out about this. And he's like, you want to know what happens after death? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I can't tell you what happens after death. And then he says, but you might even like it. And he says, you'll be able to tear right into the void and slip right into the inky blackness, just like how you lucid dream straight after, and I will be there to help you. Death is a concept known only to humans and will become obsolete. But for now, get lost. And then it kicked me out of the dream.
That's deep. That's so
Those
crazy.
are my lucid dreams.
That's so awesome. And it brings up like the idea of that the Tibetan Buddhists used to talk about too.
That's exactly it.
Dreams prepare us for death.
Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
And it was really crazy because I hadn't read that. I didn't know about that at all. And then like later on, I was like just sort of looking through, and yeah, I came across the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I've got a copy now. And what he was talking about was very similar. And I was like, oh, this is crazy, because he basically said like, yeah, lucid dreaming is to prepare you for this like slip into death. And in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they use lucid dreaming as a way to prepare for the process that happens after death to escape the cycle of rebirth.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I've been reading a lot about that too lately. Getting into dream work in this waking existence is so important because it makes that transition smoother. I mean, a lot of my lucid dreams have taken away my fear of death, which I don't really have anymore. And I haven't for a while because I've had similar, experiences where I'm talking to dream characters and they're telling me about what life is and what it means to be born and to die. And they're telling me about how, the spirit world versus the physical world and all of this stuff before I started reading about it in books and like before New Age spirituality started talking about it.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting for me to have these types of lucid dreams, like even 10 years ago when it really was not talked about at all.
And maybe like this is the theory that it's the collective unconscious. It's like the symbols that we already have within our disposal from ancestral knowledge, or maybe it's not. Maybe there's something else. We just don't know.
Do you write down all your dreams currently?
Yeah. Because I realized like there's just so much, there's so many layers of it that I just like a week later, I'll have another dream and it will sort of really point to something within the first dream that I was having, or maybe sometimes there's like something outside of the dream that makes a lot of sense in context with the dream. So yeah, I've learned to write it all down.
Nice. What method of dream journaling works best for you?
I just wake up and write it down in my phone notes, and then I'll transfer it to like a digital diary. And I've just got so many that it's easier that way because I can just sort of type in like what the dream I'm looking for, and it will take me like to where that was, like whether it was like 2 years ago or like a year ago. So that works.
Nice. Yeah, it's super convenient to be able to just search dreams by keywords.
Yeah.
I use my phone too. I have an app, but it allows me to search and it's really helpful.
What's the app called?
The one I use is Oniri for the dream journal, but I also use a voice activated recorder, which is called Sleep Recorder. And the reason I do that is because I remember a lot more when I don't have to physically pick up my phone to type it in and try to remember and the light. So what I do is before I go to sleep, almost every night, I activate the recorder app, and then I don't have to touch my phone at all. I can just stay in my body position with my eyes closed, and my voice recorder will pick it up as long as I turn it on. So in the morning, I go back and I listen to whatever it picked up. And sometimes I totally didn't even realize that I mumbled that from halfway asleep. I would have completely forgotten. So I get like so many more dreams since I started doing that. And then I go back in and I transcribe the voice note into my dream journal and I type it all out.
That's amazing. That is such a good idea. I think I'm totally going to like integrate that one because I think I sleep talk sometimes too. I think some of that would be very interesting. Something else that I do is I have like a graph, like a chart, and it's like 2024 like dreams or something. And it's like a bunch of squares and I have different colors like lucid dream, induced, lucid dream, non-induced, happy dream, sad dream. And I color coordinate the days of the month so I can see just what the patterns are, like when I'm having the most lucid dreams, what kind of dreams are they? And that one works for me as well.
I love that. Taking data about your dreams is so cool, especially when you have pretty organizational skills. I like that.
Yeah.
What do you do with the patterns? Like, what have you noticed over time about your dream energies or content?
So like I was having like heaps more earlier in the last 2 years. And then it got to a point where like, because there was nobody around me that really knew what I was going through or talking about. And the dreams themselves were getting to a point of intensity where I just felt like crazy all the time. I was really dissociative. this is another thing that if you don't have the right support around you when you're like doing anything psychotherapeutical, is that you like there's a possibility where you can not be very grounded and you can become very dissociative, and your reality is like not as stable. I'm not saying that it leads to psychosis or any other sort of like disorders, that's not proven, but yeah, I was getting really anxious about it and I just needed people to connect with. And I just sort of said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I need a break. And the person I was dating at the time was also just like, you really need to take a break from this. So I stopped having lucid dreams for a little while there, or I didn't have as many. And then I started connecting with like you and like other people as well. And it's been happening like more, and I feel more in control, and I feel like, you know what, like I'm not crazy. This is okay. And then now picking up again. So I guess that was like a little bit of a pattern there where it's like it stopped for a bit because I wanted it to stop, and now it's coming back.
There's ebbs and flows to it, you know, and I think it's good to be able to recognize when you need to take a break, go back into it so that we don't burn ourselves out. Because, you know, keeping a dream journal and all these things that we do, it can be exhausting, but, you know, we're motivated. So it's also exciting.
Yeah, that's a big theme for me. Like, I really will just burn myself out because I'm just like, no, I need to get to the bottom of this, gonna help humanity. Like, let's do this. And I will burn myself out. So yeah, it is. You just need to be like, take responsibility for your mental health, and just like, if you need a break, take a break.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't post a podcast episode for like 4 months and I felt really bad about it, but like, I just needed like a break, and it re-energized me because now I'm like, okay, I have to do this. I'm like ready. So I'm excited though, because now I'm trying to do it more consistently. And I don't know, I've noticed like at first I was just doing this for fun. And now I'm noticing like people are starting to reach out to me like, hey, I really like your podcast. When's the next one? So I'm like, maybe people are listening. Like, I feel like I've been doubting myself a little bit. So it's inspiring.
You, from like where you are right now, like the person doing this and like doing the work, you don't have any like sort of perspective on what this is for people. What this means, where there is somebody who is like accessible and down to earth and is talking about these things from like, you know, the age that we're in, and not doing it in this like sort of like culty mindset where it's just like, yeah, you need to like pay for my breathing course or anything. Like this is really important work. And I think it is influential, and, you know, you've reached me and now I'm spreading my message, and this is good. This is good work.
Yeah, I love it. And I love like just talking about this and doing it for free and teaching people. Like, I'll comment all the time. Like, I'm constantly online giving people tips and responding and posting videos. And like, if you go through my content enough, you can learn to lucid dream for free. Yeah. And I do have an online course that I've put together and put all this time into that people can pay for if that's what they want to do. But I don't force anybody to do that because I have so much free stuff. Like, you don't have to buy an online course. And even so, like, people charge thousands and thousands of dollars for lucid dreaming courses. Like, mine's like less than $100 because I want it to be accessible. And the only reason I'm charging is because I have things on there that I had to pay for. But all my content is mostly free, you know?
I think it's good. Like, you need like a balance. Like, you need to be able to support yourself as well. Like, I wouldn't provide counseling for free for everyone. I just think like accessible prices, and hope that you know, spreads enough of the skills where it's like, yeah, I'll teach you some like psychotherapeutic skills, and you tell your friends, and everyone learns how to active listen, and that's good, you know, as long as I'm like able to afford food, and that's good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty simple, you know, and my goal eventually is like, I don't want money from people that I'm teaching. I mean, with the podcast, I don't know, maybe I can do sponsors or brand deals, or there's other ways to generate income without like getting it from your audience specifically. So it's something I'm trying to navigate because I do want to do this for a living. I want to be able to do this mainly as the main thing that I do. So it's a weird thing because I don't like the concept of money. I hate it. I wish everything in the world could be free, but that's just not realistic. Yeah.
Not where we are now, but maybe in the future, maybe when we all start to lucid dream, we won't need money.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
This is a whole branch of something else, but something you brought up Indigenous cultures before, and there is like something that of note that I think is a good thing to just sort of talk about briefly. And you know, I'm not like the most like educated person inside of this topic, but there's a branch of lucid dreaming that is used for medicine inside of like quite a few Indigenous cultures, and almost plant spirit medicine. And when people hear that word, they most often think of like, plant spirit medicine, like marijuana, like, you know, that's like almost like a psychedelic even. And like, you know, that must be medicinal. That's not exactly what I'm talking about, although it has been used for like healing. I'm talking about there are indigenous cultures that used lucid dreaming as a way to connect to the spirit of different herbal plants and heal people. And it is like a really interesting branch of lucid dreaming. And I hope that that is something, along with other psychological integrations, that is brought back to help us connect with the native environment around us. And the way that one can do that is by connecting physically with a plant or herb or something natural that is around them and asking that spirit permission to like have dreams about them. And I've had like some success with this as well, as esoterical as it sounds, but you can, even if it is just like collective knowledge or collective unconscious knowledge, sort of access things, not just about like healing, but other things as well. If you ask the right questions and you ask permission from like your dreams to understand these topics.
Speaking of like the herbs and stuff, have you experimented with any like onrogens, like dream herbs, such as like mugwort or blue lotus?
Like, before I was lucid dreaming, like absolutely, like I was Damiana, catnip, lemon balm, things that were used to like relaxants and endorphin boosting kind of herbs. But like now that I'm in where I am now, I don't like to rely on anything. I think I can do it all myself. And maybe almost when you're taking the herbs, not to say that they aren't effective, they are effective, but they can sort of change the content of the dream. And another thing that Charlie Morley talks about is when you're taking different sorts of herbs and things, sometimes it disrupts the sanctity of the connection that you have yourself with your own subconscious. So no, I tend not to. I don't judge people that do. I think there's nothing wrong with it. Like you could be connected to that plant and that's like just like a gateway for you, and that there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, if you're a beginner, you really want to establish your own practice. You don't want to go chasing fast results by depending on supplements or dream herbs or anything like that. It's more for just experimentation every once in a while for your own exploration. It's not something that you think you need to get a lucid dream or a certain kind of dream. So I'm glad you said that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Like you 100% are capable just within yourself. You don't need outside help.
So I also like to close off I love to ask people like if there's anything on your heart, like any advice maybe for people in Australia or in general, people that feel kind of alone when it comes to understanding their dreams. Do you have any advice for people on how they can kind of awaken that part of them?
Loneliness is sometimes so important for one's own spiritual journey, but sometimes damaging too. And when you realize that it is sort of damaging for you, reach out and disrupt that pattern of like depression and isolation. Just offer a hand up. And oftentimes that is enough for a connection to begin, where you just put your hand up and just say like, hi, like I'm in this position, I need help. Like just to me, to you, to like anyone, to like, you know, like anyone, to a friend, to like a family member, just ask.
Yeah, I love that. And you might be surprised too, like when you start talking about your dreams, people around you get excited too. Like when I start talking about how I do dream work, people are like, oh, I had this dream, let me tell you about it. And then they get more comfortable. So like one person at a time, we're normalizing dream sharing. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like it takes courage and it takes faith to be the change you wish to see in the world, but slowly but surely it's happening. And thank you to everyone who does end up listening to this too. You guys are all capable as well.
Please leave a review on Spotify, Apple, or whatever platform you're on, even if it's on Google or directly on my website. So if you made it this far and you love the podcast, leave a review. Love you. Sweet dreams.